Convicted war criminal Omar Khadr spent his first night in a Canadian jail.
Unscrupulous Canadian journalists and politicians refer to him as a self-confessed war criminal. But his lawyer, Dennis Edney, argues that he is a victim of war who, at the hands of genuine war criminals in Western governments, has been unlawfully incarcerated, tortured, and denied basic civil liberties. Omar Khadr, who is a Canadian citizen, was kidnapped at gunpoint from Afghanistan when he was only 15 years old by US occupying forces. He was then taken to the controversial Guantanamo Bay prison camp, where he spent a decade of his life without due process, and now the Harper government is making the child soldier spend more time behind bars in Canada.
Surely, there can be no greater rebuke levied against a government, its elected representatives and others that purport to uphold the rule of law than to have been complicit in something that is both real and horrifying against one of its citizens, especially a youth, namely torture. How we can allow a child to remain in Guantanamo Bay without saying anything, how we could allow a place called Guantanamo Bay to exist without making some protest. We cannot talk about ourselves as law-abiding people when that type of actions are not challenged.
The Harper government waxes lyrical about law and order, but when it comes to Omar Khadr, argues Edney, the Harper government has consistently flouted the law and refused to comply with rulings of the Supreme Court of Canada.
Involving Omar Khadr, the Canadian Supreme Court, in a major rebuke, ruled the US treatment of Omar Khadr in Guantanamo Bay contravened the International Convention on Torture and the Geneva Conventions, and that Canada was complicit in that torture. Well, the Canadian government is following the same path as the American government. They talk about international law, but they don't follow it. Omar Khadr was entitled to all types of international protection. The Convention on the Rights of the Child, the Convention Against Torture. Our own Supreme Court of Canada said he was tortured, and yet our government chooses not to provide him with all those conventions that he's entitled to.
The internationally reputed human rights lawyer condemned the Harper government's attitude towards the UN. Edney noted that the UN Committee Against Torture recently slammed the Canadian government's complicity in torture against Canadian citizens, such as child soldier Omar Khadr. Joshua Blakeney, Press TV, Calgary.
I think this shouldn't be a